what is going to stop the only thing that's up this year? It's got to be something strong because, this, if you've been watching stocks, like we talked earlier, they've just been getting beat up so bad, and it needs a real strong catalyst if it's going to form a bottom for stocks and form a top for the dollar. And those two are so closely related.
Yeah, again, it totally makes sense there. I certainly wouldn't want to be betting against the US dollar at the moment, just given the current strength. Nick, how do you see that sort of, speaking of what I was talking about earlier, do you see that sort of continuing, or what do you think needs to change in order for sort of the dollar to sort of slow down a little bit?
Yeah, Simon, it's a really interesting question because what is going to stop something? What is going to stop the only thing that's up this year? It's got to be something strong because, this, if you've been watching stocks, like we talked earlier, they've just been getting beat up so bad, and it needs a real strong catalyst if it's going to form a bottom for stocks and form a top for the dollar. And those two are so closely related. Maybe I can pull up the stock market here for a second, just in reference to what we've got going on. So the stock market, right, down terrible. The S&P 500 down, I think it's like 15%, but even worse than that is the NASDAQ down like 25%, 26% since the start of 2022. So you're looking at an environment that is so momentum heavy to the downside, right? Risk off. That's why we're seeing the dollar so strong. We're seeing people favor the dollar again and again. And, you ask what would cause a change in that. For me, it's going to be an interesting thing. The timing of this live stream is interesting because tomorrow we have a major announcement on the CPI numbers. And I can't personally think of a time in my history as a currency trader in the last 6 years that CPI mattered more. We are looking for that inflation curve to slowly start turning back the other way. We've just seen pounding on the door inflation. And that concern is mounting as we get closer and closer to that double-digit inflation number that nobody wants to see, right? And so for me, as we go into tomorrow's announcement with CPI, that is going to be a major thing. If we can get something that is, inflation, the Fed is doing its job well, better than expected perhaps even, that could be the turning point for the dollar. But right now, a lot of forecasts, a lot of outlook is still just, inflation. Yes, it will probably curb, but is it going to be enough? Too little, too late kind of thing. And that's just a continuous conversation dominating stock market and currency markets right now.
It is, yeah. That's some excellent insight. There's so many points to pick out of that. I mean, you point about the S&P and the NASDAQ. I mean, the NASDAQ was just on this incredible run into the pandemic and after for various reasons, and it's finally topped out, and we've seen a pretty serious correction of it. But you mentioned the sort of inflation, which of course to everyday people results in a cost of living. That's something that central banks across the world, including in the UK and the generally more resilient sort of Australian economy as well, that's dealing with as well. So there's so many different factors, and of course the awful situation in Ukraine as well that are playing on the markets at the moment. So from a sort of critical trader's point of view, that's great for volatility and opportunity as well. So Dylan, what are your sort of views? I mean, maybe you want to talk more about the stock market if you're more familiar with that. What are your sort of views on this sort of downtrend and risk off sort of positioning we're seeing on the stock market at the moment?
Yeah, look, it's I don't have a particular view as sort of short term, but I mean, we're at an interesting point in the market. There's I mean, when you zoom out, you can see that we've had this huge ramp up after that COVID rip, and then sort of in here, there was never really a chance for the market to consolidate and find its feet. So if it can't hold its feet here, it's probably got a pretty long way down to go. People that watch fib levels and things like that, that's quite a way down. Anchored VWAP as well from your COVID low, we've broken through that. I think we're getting a bit of a breath at the moment, so it's an interesting point. I mean, for me, what I'm looking at here on the shorter term is drilling out sort of what the previous week levels were, any daily pivot points, and then morning I'll kind of sit down and watch what that first hour does to give me a bit of an indication of how the day is going to go and how it plays around that opening range. So what we can see here in the NASDAQ, it's knocking about that first hourly candle. So we can either kind of drill into a lower time frame and risk off the high low there. Over here, I suspect we might get a pretty decent pullback for a short opportunity shortly. And that's what I'd be looking at.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. I think so. You're more short term, and that makes sense because you're more interested, I guess, in the more immediate short term price action rather than thinking of more the longer term macroeconomics. I think that sort of raises an important points about what goes into decision making as a trader.
Yeah, the macro and the stories put bad ideas in my head, so it's best to just block out the news and see what's in front of you.
Yeah, I think.